In the quiet village of Limstock, a master lantern maker is found dead in his locked workshop, a shattered crimson lantern at his feet. Poisoned. Impossible. Hercule Poirot steps into the mystery, where envy, pride, and betrayal light the path to murder. A rival craftsman, a vengeful widow, an apprentice with secrets, who wove this deadly web. In 30 seconds, the truth begins to unravel, but only Poirot's little gray cells can illuminate the killer's shadow. Chapter 1. The Locked Workshop. The autumn wind carried a chill through the cobbled streets of Limstock, a village nestled in the folds of the English countryside, where ivy clung to stone cottages and the air held the faint tang of wood smoke. Hercule Poirot, summoned by a cryptic telegram from Inspector Japp, stepped off the train at Limstock Station, his polished shoes clicking with precision on the platform. His overcoat, immaculate despite the journey, and his neatly trimmed mustache spoke of a man who valued order above all. Beside him, Captain Hastings, ever the loyal companion, fumbled with their luggage, his face bright with curiosity. "What's this about, Poirot?" Japp's telegram was dashed mysterious. "Urgent. Murder in Limstock. Need your brain." Sounds grim. Poirot's green-gray eyes twinkled, though his expression remained grave. "Mon ami, when Japp calls for Hercule Poirot, it is because the puzzle is not merely grim, but insoluble to the ordinary mind. We shall see what disorder awaits us." They were met by a local constable, a ruddy-faced young man named Perkins, who drove them in a rattling police car to the edge of the village. There, behind a low stone wall, stood the workshop of Silas Marwood, lantern maker of renown, whose creations adorned the grandest homes from London to Bath. The workshop was a sturdy building of weathered brick, its windows barred with iron, its oak door shut fast. A small crowd of villagers hovered nearby, their whispers hushed by the presence of Inspector Japp, who paced before the door, his hat askew and his face etched with frustration. "Poirot," Japp called, striding forward. "Thank heavens you're here. This one's a devil of a case. Silas Marwood, dead as a doornail, found this morning in his workshop. Door locked from the inside, windows barred, no sign of anyone getting in or out. And yet—" He lowered his voice, glancing at the villagers. "It's murder, no question." Poirot tilted his head, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the scene. "Locked from the inside, you say? Most intriguing. And what else, Inspector? What makes you so certain of murder?" Japp gestured toward the workshop. "Come see for yourself. It's not just the body, it's the state of things. Gives me the creeps." The constable unlocked the door, which creaked ominously as it swung open. Inside, the workshop was a study in contrasts, meticulous order in the rows of tools, hammers, pliers, and delicate glass cutting, instruments aligned on pegs along the walls, and chaos in the form of a shattered crimson lantern, its twisted frame and broken glass strewn across the workbench. Silas Marwood lay slumped over the bench, his gray hair matted, his hands still clutching a shard of red glass. His face, frozen in a rictus of pain, suggested a death far from peaceful. The air held a faint, acrid scent, not of lamp oil or wax, but something sharper, more sinister. Poirot stepped forward, his movements deliberate, his eyes darting over every detail. He noted the absence of dust on the workbench, the precision of Marwood's tools, and the peculiar placement of the broken lantern, as if it had been struck with force. "This lantern," he murmured, crouching to examine the shards. "It was not merely dropped, it was destroyed with intention." He touched a gloved finger to a piece of glass, observing a fine, powdery residue. "Curieux," he said softly, slipping the shard into a small envelope. Hastings, peering over his shoulder, shuddered. "Ghastly business, Poirot. Looks like he was working late and, well, something got him. But how? The door was locked, and those bars on the windows are solid as anything." Poirot straightened, his gaze sweeping the room. The ceiling was low, with exposed beams, and a narrow chimney rose above a small hearth, cold and unused. The floor was swept clean, save for the glass, and no footprints marred the polished wood. "The locked room, Hastings, is a trick of the mind. It suggests impossibility, but the truth lies in the method. We must consider not only how, but why." Jap, hovering by the door, scratched his chin. "The local doctor says it might be heart failure. Marwood was getting on, past 60, but I don't buy it. Not with that lantern smashed to bits and that look on his face. Besides, he was healthy as a horse, by all accounts." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. "The heart, it may fail, Inspector, but not without cause. We must seek the invisible weapon. Tell me, who found the body?" "His apprentice, Tom Weaver," Jap replied. "Came in at 8 this morning, found the door locked, used his key, and there was Marwood. Nearly fainted, the lad did. He's at the house now, with the others." "The others?" Poirot's eyebrows rose. Jap nodded. "3 we're looking at. Tom, the apprentice, says he locked up last night and left Marwood working. Then there's Elias Cobb, another lantern maker, been losing business to Marwood for years. Bit of bad blood there. And Mrs. Clara Henshaw, a rich widow who bought Marwood's lanterns for her fancy parties. She had a row with him a few days ago over a late order. They're all waiting at Marwood's house." Poirot clasped his hands behind his back, his expression serene yet intense. "Bon, we shall meet these suspects, and we shall observe. The truth, it hides in their words, their gestures, their lies. But first, I must study this room. Further, the little gray cells, they are already at work." As Hastings and Jap stepped outside to disperse the curious villagers, Poirot lingered, his eyes lingering on the chimney, the shards, the locked door. The crimson lantern, once a beacon of artistry, now whispered of treachery. "Mon pauvre Marwood," he said softly, "what secret did you hold that cost you your life?" Chapter 2. The Suspects Assemble. The parlor of Silas Marwood's modest home in Limstock was a study in understated elegance, its walls adorned with sketches of lanterns, their intricate designs a testament to the late craftsman's genius. The room, bathed in the muted light of an overcast noon, felt stifling despite its high ceiling and open windows. Hercule Poirot stood near the fireplace, his small, immaculate figure a stark contrast to the heavy oak furniture. His green-gray eyes, sharp as cut glass, surveyed the 3 individuals seated before him, each a potential key to the locked workshop's deadly enigma. Captain Hastings, perched on a chair near the door, fidgeted with his tie, his honest face betraying both curiosity and unease. Inspector Jap, standing by a window, chewed his lip, his impatience barely concealed as he waited for Poirot to begin. The air was thick with tension, the kind that settles when death lingers too close. Poirot, ever the master of such moments, clasped his hands behind his back and tilted his head, his mustache quivering slightly as he addressed the room. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice soft yet commanding, "we are gathered here because a tragedy has befallen this village. Monsieur Silas Marwood, a man of talent and dedication, lies dead in his workshop, and the circumstances, Oh, they are most peculiar. A locked door, barred windows, a shattered lantern. Yet murder it is. And so I, Hercule Poirot, must ask, what brought each of you into conflict with this man? The three suspects, seated in a semicircle, shifted uncomfortably. Elias Cobb, the rival lantern maker, slouched in a high-backed chair, his wiry frame tense. His face, weathered by years of labor, bore a scowl, and his dark eyes darted toward the door as if contemplating escape. Mrs. Clara Henshaw, the wealthy widow, sat ramrod straight on a velvet settee, her black dress pristine, her gloved hands folded tightly in her lap. Her pale blue eyes, cold as winter frost, met Poirot's gaze with defiance, though a faint tremor in her fingers betrayed her composure. Tom Weaver, the young apprentice, perched on the edge of an ottoman, his boyish face pale, and his hands twisting a worn cap. His eyes, red-rimmed, suggested sleeplessness, or tears, perhaps both. Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes silent on the rug. "Let us begin with the facts," he said, his tone measured. Monsieur Marwood was found this morning by Monsieur Weaver in a workshop locked from the inside. No one, it seems, could have entered or left, yet the crimson lantern, his latest creation, was shattered, and his death was no accident. Each of you had reason to cross paths with him, and each, perhaps, had reason to wish him harm. I wish to hear your stories, and I warn you, Hercule Poirot hears not only words, but the silences between them. He turned first to Elias Cobb, whose scowl deepened. "Monsieur Cobb, you are a craftsman like Marwood, oui? Yet your lanterns, they do not sell as his did. There is talk of rivalry, of envy. Tell me, where were you last night, when Marwood breathed his last?" Cobb's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "I was out walking," he said gruffly, his voice low and rough as gravel. "I often walk at night. Clears the head. I was nowhere near Marwood's place. Last I saw him was a week ago, at the market. We didn't speak." His eyes flicked to the floor, avoiding Poirot's scrutiny. Poirot raised an eyebrow. "A walk, you say? Most refreshing, no doubt. And yet, no one saw you? No neighbor, no friend to confirm this solitary stroll?" Cobb's face reddened. "It was late, past 10. Most folks are abed. I don't need anyone to vouch for me. I didn't kill him." Hastings, scribbling notes, glanced at Poirot, who gave a slight nod. "Very well," Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. "We shall return to your nocturnal habits, Monsieur Cobb. For now, I note your words, and your silences." He turned to Mrs. Henshaw, whose lips pursed as if tasting something bitter. "Madame Henshaw, you were a patron of Monsieur Marwood's work. His lanterns graced your elegant gatherings, did they not? Yet I hear there was discord, a delay in an order, a quarrel. Enlighten me, s'il vous plaît." Mrs. Henshaw's gloved hands tightened, the leather creaking faintly. "It is true," she said, her voice crisp and clipped like the snip of garden shears. "I commissioned a lantern for my annual gala, a centerpiece to outshine all others. Silas promised delivery by last Friday, but he failed me. I visited him 3 days ago to express my displeasure. He was obstinate, claiming perfection required time. I told him his excuses were unacceptable. That was the end of it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A woman of your stature, madame, does not take disappointment lightly. This gala, it is important to your reputation, oui? To be let down by a craftsman, most galling. Did your displeasure lead to more than words?" Her eyes flashed, but her voice remained steady. "I am not a woman to be trifled with, Mr. Poirot, but I am no murderess. I left his workshop after our argument and returned home. My maid can confirm I was there all evening." Poirot inclined his head. "A maid's testimony, it is valuable, but the heart of a woman scorned. Ah, that is a force to be reckoned with. We shall see, madame." Finally, he turned to Tom Weaver, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. The boy's hands trembled, and his cap was now a crumpled mess. "Monsieur Weaver, you were Monsieur Marwood's apprentice, his shadow in the workshop. You were the last to see him alive. Were you not? Tell me of yesterday evening." Tom swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. I left the workshop at 6, sir. Master Marwood was still there, working on that crimson lantern. He was particular about it, said it was his best yet. I locked the door, like always, and went home to my ma'am's house. I didn't know anything was wrong till I came back this morning and found him." His voice broke, and he looked away, blinking rapidly. Poirot stepped closer, his expression softening, but his eyes unyielding. "You locked the door, you say? And no one else had a key? Not Monsieur Cobb? Not Madame Henshaw?" Tom shook his head vigorously. "No, sir. Just me and Master Marwood. He was strict about it. Didn't trust anyone else." Poirot nodded, his fingers brushing his mustache. "A strict master, a locked door, a dead man. Most curious. And you, Monsieur Weaver, you admired your master. No quarrels? No resentments?" Tom's eyes widened. "No, sir. He was hard, but fair. Taught me everything I know about lanterns. I'd never hurt him." Poirot smiled faintly, a smile that promised nothing. "Bon, we have heard your stories. But stories, they are like lanterns, beautiful until the light reveals their flaws. I shall investigate further, and I assure you, the truth will not remain in shadow." Japp, growing restless, cleared his throat. "Right, Poirot. What's next?" "These 3 are our best leads, but that locked room's got me stumped. No footprints, no signs of a break-in. It's like a ghost did it." Poirot's lips twitched. "A ghost, Inspector?" "Non, non. The human heart is far more cunning than any spectre. We shall return to the workshop, and I shall examine the scene again. The little gray cells, they are already stirring." As the suspects rose to leave, Poirot's gaze lingered on each. Cobb's scowl had softened into unease, his fingers twitching as he adjusted his coat. Mrs. Henshaw's composure was a mask, but the faint tremor in her hands persisted, like ripples on a still pond. Tom Weaver's eyes darted between the others, his youth no shield against suspicion. Hastings, following Poirot out, whispered, "They're all hiding something, aren't they?" "That Cobb fellow's shifty, and Mrs. Henshaw's too calm by half." Poirot chuckled softly. "Mon cher Hastings, you see much, but you understand little. It is not what they hide, but why. The locked workshop, the shattered lantern, these are not the mystery. The mystery is the motive, and that we shall uncover." Outside, the village buzzed with gossip, neighbors whispering behind gloved hands. Poirot paused, his eyes scanning the street, noting the blacksmith's forge, the chemist's shop, the narrow lane leading to Cobb's rival workshop. Every detail, every glance, was a piece of the puzzle. He turned to Japp. "Inspector, arrange for the suspects to remain in Limstock. No one leaves until I have spoken with them again. And you, Hastings, observe. The smallest gesture, the slightest word, it may be the key." As they walked back toward the workshop, Poirot's mind churned. The acrid scent in the workshop, the residue on the lantern's shards, the locked door, they pointed to a method both ingenious and cruel. But it was the suspects' faces that lingered: Cobb's guarded defiance, Mrs. Henshaw's icy control, Tom's raw fear. One of them had woven a web of deception, and Poirot, with his meticulous precision, would unravel it thread by thread. The parlor, now empty, seemed to echo with their words, each a fragment of truth or lie. Poirot knew the game was only beginning, and in Limstock's quiet lanes, a killer waited, believing their secret safe. But no secret, he mused, could withstand the scrutiny of Hercule Poirot. Chapter 3. The Shattered Lantern. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cobbled streets of Limstock as Hercule Poirot returned to Silas Marwood's workshop, his polished shoes clicking with purpose. Captain Hastings trailed behind, his brow furrowed, while Inspector Japp, ever practical, muttered about the need for concrete evidence. The workshop door, still ajar from their earlier visit, creaked as Poirot pushed it open, revealing the scene of death unchanged. The orderly tools, the lifeless form of Marwood slumped over his workbench, and the crimson lantern, its once proud frame, now a jagged ruin of twisted metal and shattered glass. Poirot's green-gray eyes swept the room, missing nothing. The air still held that faint, acrid scent, sharp enough to prickle the senses, but elusive in its origin. He stepped carefully around the workbench, his small frame bending low to inspect the debris. "This lantern," he murmured, his gloved fingers hovering over a shard of red glass. "It is not merely broken, it is destroyed with intent. Regardes, Hastings, the edges are not clean, as from a fall. They are crushed, as if struck with force." Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder, adjusted his spectacles. "Looks like someone took a hammer to it, eh? But why smash a lantern? It's not as if it's a weapon." Poirot's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "A weapon, mon ami? Perhaps not in the way you imagine, but every object has its purpose in a crime. This lantern, it was Marwood's masterpiece, oui? Yet now it lies in ruins. We must ask, what did its destruction conceal or reveal?" Japp, pacing near the door, snorted. "You're seeing riddles where I see a mess, Poirot. The doctor's sticking to heart failure, though I told him that look on Marwood's face, twisted like that, means something nastier. No wounds, no blood, but that doesn't mean natural causes." Poirot nodded, his attention fixed on a faint, powdery residue clinging to the glass shards. He produced a small envelope from his pocket and, with the precision of a surgeon, scraped a sample of the powder into it. "This residue," he said softly, "it is not dust, nor is it the residue of craftsmanship. It is something else. I shall have it analyzed, Inspector. The little gray cells, they suggest a possibility, but we must confirm." Hastings frowned, glancing at the body. Marwood's hands, still clutching a shard, were unmarked save for faint smudges of the same powder. "Poison, you think? But how? He wasn't eating or drinking, was he? Just working on his lantern." Poirot straightened, his eyes gleaming. "Exactement, Hastings. The method, it is always in the details. Consider, a locked room, a shattered lantern, a man dead with no visible wound. The poison, if poison it is, must have entered another way. Through the air, perhaps, or through touch. The lantern is the key." He moved to the windows, their iron bars unyielding, and tested each with a gentle push. They held firm, the latches untouched. The door, too, showed no signs of tampering. Its lock was intact, the key still in Marwood's pocket. Poirot's gaze drifted to the chimney, narrow and blackened with soot. He crouched, peering up its flue, his fingers brushing the hearth. A faint smudge of soot on the stone caught his eye, too fresh to be from a long, cold fire. "Curieux," he murmured. "This chimney, it is not so innocent as it seems." Jap, catching the remark, strode over. "You're not saying someone climbed down that? It's barely wide enough for a cat, and Marwood would have heard them." Poirot's smile was serene. "I say nothing yet, Inspector. I observe. The chimney, the lantern, the lock. They all speak, but we must listen carefully. Tell me, what do we know of Marwood's habits? Did he work alone, always? Or did visitors come?" Jap scratched his chin. "According to the apprentice, Tom Weaver, Marwood was a solitary sort. Liked to tinker late into the night, especially on special orders like that crimson lantern. Customers came by appointment, but he didn't let just anyone in. Trusted Weaver to lock up, though." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The locked room suggested an impossible crime, yet Poirot knew impossibility was merely a challenge to reason. He turned back to the workbench, noting a small ledger tucked beneath a pile of sketches. Flipping it open, he found meticulous records of Marwood's orders. Names, dates, descriptions of lanterns. One entry stood out. Mrs. Clara Henshaw, commissioning the crimson lantern for her gala, with a note, "Urgent, client displeased with delay." Another page listed supplies, including a recent delivery of glass from a supplier in a neighboring town. Poirot's fingers lingered on the entry, his eyes narrowing. "Hastings," he said suddenly, "you will accompany me to the village chemist. This powder, it must be identified. And you, Inspector, I suggest you speak to the neighbors. Someone may have seen a figure near the workshop last night, a shadow, a movement. The smallest detail, it may unlock this mystery." Jap sighed but nodded. "Right, I'll round up the locals. But I'm warning you, Poirot, this village is tight-lipped. They don't like outsiders poking about." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Then it is fortunate, mon ami, that Hercule Poirot is no ordinary outsider. I do not poke. I uncover." As they left the workshop, the constable locking the door behind them, Poirot's thoughts swirled. The shattered lantern was no mere act of vandalism. It was the heart of the crime. The powder, the soot, the locked door. They formed a pattern, one he could almost grasp. Marwood's death was no accident, nor was it the work of a ghostly hand. Someone had planned this with care, exploiting the craftsman's solitary habits and the sanctity of his locked workshop. But who? Elias Cobb, whose envy festered like a wound. Mrs. Henshaw, her pride stung by a delayed order. Or young Tom Weaver, whose loyalty seemed too fervent to be true. The village street was quiet now. The curious crowd dispersed, but Poirot felt the weight of unseen eyes. Limstock held its secrets close, but he would prise them open, one by one, until the truth shone as brightly as Marwood's lanterns once had. Chapter 4. The Rival's Secret. The late afternoon light filtered through the grimy windows of Elias Cobb's workshop, casting a pallor over the cluttered space. Unlike Silas Marwood's pristine haven of craftsmanship, Cobb's domain was a chaotic jumble of half-finished lanterns, their frames askew, their glass panes smudged and uneven. Tools lay scattered across a workbench, stained with oil and soot, and the air carried a faint mustiness, as if ambition had long since stagnated here. Hercule Poirot, his immaculate overcoat a stark contrast to the disorder, stood at the center of the room, his green-gray eyes scanning every detail. Captain Hastings, beside him, wrinkled his nose at the mess, while Elias Cobb leaned against a wall, his arms crossed, his scowl deepening under Poirot's scrutiny. Monsieur Cobb, Poirot began, his voice soft but carrying the weight of authority. Your workshop, it tells a story of struggle, does it not? Where Monsieur Marwood's lanterns shone like stars. Yours, I fear, have dimmed in their shadow. This rivalry, it Claremont, it must have been bitter, none? Cobb's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. I don't need your fancy words, Mr. Poirot, he said gruffly. Marwood was better, I'll grant you. His designs were clever, his work meticulous. Mine sell well enough, though. I've no cause to complain. Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing at his lips. And yet, complain you did, I think. The village speaks of your envy, your frustration. Marwood's success was a thorn in your side, was it not? Tell me, where were you last night, when Monsieur Marwood met his end? Cobb shifted, his fingers drumming against his arm. I told you already, at the assembly. I was walking alone after 10. No one saw me, and I didn't see anyone. I was nowhere near Marwood's workshop. Hastings, ever observant, caught sight of a crumpled sheet of paper on Cobb's workbench, half hidden beneath a pile of wire. He stepped closer, his curiosity piqued, and lifted it to reveal a detailed sketch of a lantern, its design strikingly similar to the crimson lantern found shattered beside Marwood's body. I say, Poirot, Hastings exclaimed, holding up the paper. This looks like Marwood's work. How'd you get hold of this? Cobb's face flushed, a bead of sweat forming at his temple. It's just a sketch, he muttered. I admired Marwood's style. Drew it to study his technique, that's all. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he took the sketch from Hastings, his gloved fingers tracing the precise lines. A study, you say? Most thorough, Monsieur Cobb. This is no mere imitation. It is a near replica of Marwood's latest design. A coincidence, perhaps? Or did you seek to steal more than inspiration? Cobb's scowl faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. I didn't steal anything, he said, his voice rising. I saw his work at a fair last month, that's all. Drew it from memory. I'm a craftsman, same as him. No crime in learning from the best. Poirot tilted his head, his expression serene yet piercing. Learning, non? Or coveting? To recreate such a design requires more than a glance, Monsieur Cobb. It requires access, close, careful access. Did you visit Marwood's workshop, perhaps? Did you seek to take what was not yours? Cobb's hands clenched into fists, his voice dropping to a growl. I told you, I wasn't there last night. I haven't set foot in his workshop in months. You're barking up the wrong tree, Mr. Poirot. Poirot handed the sketch back to Hastings, who folded it carefully, his brow furrowed. We shall see, Monsieur Cobb, Poirot said softly. The tree of truth has many branches, and I shall climb them all. Tell me, what did you know of Marwood's habits? Did he ever speak of his work, his secrets? Cobb hesitated, his eyes darting to the side. Silas wasn't one for chatter, kept to himself mostly, worked late, always tinkering. He'd lock himself in that workshop till all hours, perfecting his designs. Didn't trust many folks, not even his apprentice, Tom, when it came to his best pieces. Poirot nodded, filing the information away. A solitary man, then, and yet his work was known far and wide. Such fame? It breeds envy, does it not? Did it breed envy in you? Cobb's face hardened, but he said nothing, his silence as telling as words. Poirot's gaze lingered on him, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers twitched as if itching to act. Very well, Poirot said at last. We shall speak again, Monsieur Cobb. The truth, it has a way of shining through even the darkest shadows. As they left the workshop, Hastings glanced at Poirot, his voice low. "That sketch, Poirot. It's damning, isn't it? He's been copying Marwood's designs. That's motive enough, if you ask me." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "Motive, oui, Hastings. But motive alone does not a murderer make. The sketch suggests theft, perhaps, but the method of Marwood's death, the locked room, the shattered lantern, requires cunning beyond mere envy. We must dig deeper, mon ami." They stepped into the fading light of Limstock streets, the village quiet, save for the distant clatter of a cart. Poirot's mind churned, the sketch a new piece in the puzzle. Cobb's denial was firm, but his unease betrayed him. Had he crept into Marwood's workshop, not just to steal, but to kill? The acrid scent, the powdery residue, the locked door. They pointed to a plan both subtle and sinister. Poirot's little gray cells hummed, sensing the truth was near, hidden in the shadows of Cobb's cluttered workshop. Chapter 5. The Widow's Motive. The drawing room of Mrs. Clara Henshaw's manor was a testament to wealth and taste, its polished mahogany furniture gleaming under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The walls, adorned with portraits of stern-faced ancestors, seemed to watch as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings were ushered in by a prim maid. Outside, the twilight deepened over Limstock, the village settling into a quiet that belied the turmoil of murder. Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a tailored suit, stood near a marble fireplace, his green-gray eyes scanning the room with the precision of a jeweler assessing a gem. Hastings, less at ease, adjusted his collar, his honest face betraying a mix of awe and suspicion at the opulence surrounding them. Mrs. Henshaw sat on a velvet-upholstered chair, her black mourning dress a stark contrast to the room's warmth. Her posture was rigid, her gloved hands folded in her lap, but her pale blue eyes held a steely resolve as they met Poirot's gaze. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender from a nearby vase, yet an undercurrent of tension lingered, as if the room itself held its breath. "Madame Henshaw," Poirot began, his voice smooth yet probing, "I thank you for receiving us at this late hour. The death of Monsieur Silas Marwood is a tragedy that touches many in Limstock, and you, as one of his most esteemed patrons, must feel it keenly. I wish to understand your connection to the unfortunate man." Mrs. Henshaw's lips tightened, a faint crease forming on her otherwise flawless brow. "I was a customer, Mr. Poirot, nothing more. Silas Marwood's lanterns were the finest in the county, and I commissioned them for my gatherings. His work added distinction to my home, but I hardly knew him beyond that." Poirot inclined his head, his mustache quivering slightly. "And yet, madame, there was discord, was there not? A lantern, promised for your gala, was delayed. You visited Monsieur Marwood 3 days ago, and voices were raised. Tell me, what passed between you?" Her gloved fingers twitched, the leather creaking faintly. "It is no secret," she said, her tone crisp as frost. "I ordered a bespoke lantern, a crimson one to be precise, for my annual gala, an event of some importance in Limstock. Silas assured me it would be ready, but when I called to collect it, he claimed it needed more time. I was displeased. My guests expect perfection, and I told him his delays were intolerable. He was stubborn, insisting on his artistry. We parted on poor terms, but that was the extent of it." Poirot paced slowly, his eyes drifting to a glass-fronted cabinet across the room. Among the delicate crystal figurines and porcelain dishes, a small vial of colorless liquid caught his attention, its label obscured, but its presence incongruous amid the decorative trinkets. "A curious ornament, madame," he remarked, gesturing toward the vial. "Most unusual for such a collection. May I ask its purpose?" Mrs. Henshaw's gaze followed his, and for a moment her composure faltered. A flicker of unease in her eyes quickly masked. "A trifle," she said dismissively. "A cleaning solution for my glassware. Nothing of consequence." Poirot's smile was polite but unrelenting. "Cleaning solution, you say? In so elegant a display. Most interesting. And this solution, it is safe to handle, oui? No. Harmful properties?" Her eyes narrowed, but her voice remained steady. "I assure you, Mr. Poirot, it is harmless. I am not in the habit of keeping dangerous substances in my drawing room." Hastings, standing near the fireplace, shifted uncomfortably, his intuition prickling. "Sounds like a lot of fuss over a late lantern," he ventured. "You must have been awfully cross, Mrs. Henshaw, enough to do something drastic." Her head snapped toward him, her expression icy. "Captain Hastings, I am a woman of means and reputation. I do not resort to drastic measures over a craftsman's incompetence. I left Silas Marwood's workshop after our disagreement and returned here. My maid, Ellen, can confirm I was home all evening." Poirot nodded, his fingers brushing his mustache as he absorbed her words. "Your maid? She is most loyal, no doubt. But tell me, madame, did you ever visit Monsieur Marwood's workshop at other times? Perhaps to check on the progress of your lantern, or to ensure its quality?" Mrs. Henshaw's lips parted, then closed, as if weighing her response. "I visited only when necessary," she said finally. "Silas was particular about his workspace. He did not welcome unannounced callers." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And yet, a woman of your determination, madame, might find a way to see what she wished. A glimpse through a window, perhaps, or a word with his apprentice. You valued this lantern greatly, did you not?" "It was important," she admitted, her voice softening slightly. "My gala is a tradition, Mr. Poirot. The lantern was to be its centerpiece, a symbol of my standing. Silas's delay threatened that." Poirot paused, his gaze lingering on the vial. "A symbol, oui, and symbols, they can drive the heart to extremes. I thank you for your candor, madame. We shall speak again." As they left the manor, Hastings exhaled, his breath visible in the chilly evening air. "She's hiding something, Poirot. That vial? It's not just cleaning solution, is it? And the way she dodged your questions about visiting the workshop, I'd wager she's been there more than she lets on." Poirot chuckled softly, his eyes bright with calculation. "You see much, mon cher Hastings, but you leap too quickly. The vial, it is suspicious, oui, but we must not assume. Mrs. Henshaw's pride is wounded, her gala threatened. This is a motive, but is it enough for murder? We must learn more. The chemist, he will tell us of this powder from the lantern, and perhaps of purchases made by a certain widow." They walked toward the village, the manor's lights fading behind them. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the fragments, the shattered lantern, the acrid scent, the locked room, and now Mrs. Henshaw's guarded demeanor. The vial suggested a possibility. Poison, perhaps, concealed in plain sight. But how had it reached Marwood, and why destroy the lantern? The widow's motive was clear, but the method remained elusive, a shadow just beyond his grasp. Limstock's streets were silent, the villagers tucked away in their homes, but Poirot felt the weight of their secrets. Mrs. Henshaw's composure was a fortress, but even fortresses had cracks. He would find them, and with them, the truth behind Silas Marwood's death. Chapter 6. The Apprentice's Tale. The twilight had deepened into a velvet dusk as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings made their way to the modest cottage where Tom Weaver, Silas Marwood's apprentice, lived with his widowed mother. The village of Limstock was hushed, its cobbled streets illuminated only by the faint glow of lanterns in windows, casting flickering shadows that seemed to whisper of secrets. Poirot, his small frame bundled in a neatly tailored overcoat, moved with his usual precision, his polished shoes tapping softly on the stones. Hastings, trailing beside him, clutched his coat against the evening chill, his face a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Poor lad," he muttered. "Finding his master like that must have been a shock. Do you think he's telling the truth, Poirot?" He seemed awfully shaken in the parlor. Poirot's green-gray eyes glinted in the dim light, his mustache twitching with a faint smile. "Mon cher Hastings, the young are often the most transparent, yet also the most apt to conceal. Monsieur Weaver's distress, it is genuine, but is it born of grief, fear, or guilt? That is what we must discover." The Weaver cottage was a humble affair, its thatched roof sagging slightly, its whitewashed walls tinged gray by years of weather. A faint light spilled from a window, and as Poirot knocked, the door was opened by a weary-looking woman in her 40s, her apron dusted with flour. "Mrs. Weaver," Poirot said, bowing slightly. "I am Hercule Poirot, and this is Captain Hastings. We come to speak with your son, Tom, about the tragedy of Monsieur Marwood. May we enter?" Mrs. Weaver's eyes widened, but she nodded, stepping aside. "He's in the kitchen, sir. Been quiet all day, poor boy. This business with Mr. Marwood, it's hit him hard." The kitchen was warm, smelling of bread and coal, with a single oil lamp casting a soft glow over a scrubbed wooden table. Tom Weaver sat hunched in a chair, his boyish face pale, his hands twisting a frayed cloth. His eyes, red-rimmed and shadowed, flicked up as Poirot and Hastings entered, a mix of wariness and exhaustion in his gaze. "Mr. Poirot," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I told you all I know. I locked the workshop and went home. I couldn't hurt Master Marwood." Poirot settled into a chair across from Tom, his movements deliberate, his expression one of gentle scrutiny. "Monsieur Weaver, I do not doubt your grief, but I must understand the events of yesterday. You were the last to see Monsieur Marwood alive. Oui? Tell me, precisely, what passed in the workshop before you left." Tom swallowed, his fingers tightening on the cloth. "It was like any other day, sir. I was cleaning tools, sweeping up glass cuttings. Master Marwood was working on the crimson lantern, Mrs. Henshaw's order. He was particular about it, said it had to be perfect. He was at his bench, shaping the frame, when I left at 6. I locked the door, like always, and came home. Ma'am can tell you I was here all evening." Mrs. Weaver, hovering near the stove, nodded vigorously. "He was, sir. Came in just after 6, ate his supper, and went to bed. Never left the house." Poirot's eyes never left Tom's face. "Bon. And this lantern, it was special to Monsieur Marwood? Did he speak of it, or of any visitors? Perhaps Monsieur Cobb, or Madame Henshaw?" Tom shook his head. He didn't like visitors when he was working. Mrs. Henshaw came by a few days ago, shouting about her order, but that was it. Mr. Cobb never came, not that I saw. Master Marwood kept to himself mostly, said his lanterns spoke for him. Poirot leaned forward, his gaze sharpening. "And you, Monsieur Weaver, you handled the materials for this lantern? The glass, the metal, perhaps other substances?" His eyes flicked to Tom's hands, noting faint, reddish marks on his fingers. Not cuts, but burns, subtle and chemical in nature. Tom's hands jerked back, as if stung. I handled the glass, sure, cut it, polished it, but nothing else. Well, except... He hesitated, his eyes darting to his mother, then back to Poirot. There was some lamp oil I spilled a few days ago, got on my hands, stung a bit, that's all. Poirot's mustache quivered, his voice soft but insistent. Lamp oil, you say? Most curious, for lamp oil does not burn the skin in this manner. These marks, they are recent, oui? Tell me, did Monsieur Marwood ever ask you to handle anything unusual? Powders, perhaps, or liquids? Tom's face paled further, his voice trembling. No, sir, just the usual. Glass, wire, solder. He was careful, always telling me to mind the tools, keep things clean. He didn't trust anyone else with his materials. Hastings, leaning against the wall, raised an eyebrow. Careful, was he? Yet you're the one with burns, lad. Sounds like you got into something you shouldn't have. Tom's eyes flashed with panic. I didn't. I swear, I just did what he told me. I locked up, I went home. I found him like that this morning, dead, with that lantern smashed. I don't know how it happened. Poirot raised a hand, silencing Hastings' next remark. Calm yourself, Monsieur Weaver. I do not accuse, I inquire. Tell me of Monsieur Marwood's habits. Did he work late often? Did he receive deliveries, glass, perhaps, or other supplies? Tom nodded, his shoulders slumping. He worked late most nights, especially on that crimson lantern. Said it was his best yet, for Mrs. Henshaw's gala. We got a delivery of glass last week, from a supplier in Cranford. Master Marwood checked it himself, said it was perfect for the job. Poirot's eyes gleamed, filing away the detail. A delivery, you say? And who brought it? Did you see this supplier? Tom shook his head. No, sir. It came in crates, left outside the workshop. Master Marwood unpacked them himself, didn't let me touch them till he'd looked them over. Poirot leaned back, his fingers steepled. Most interesting. A man so meticulous, yet he meets his end in a locked room, with his masterpiece in ruins. I thank you, Monsieur Weaver, for your candor. We shall speak again. As they stepped outside, the night air sharp against their faces, Hastings turned to Poirot. Those burns, Poirot, they're not from lamp oil, are they? The boy's hiding something, or he's scared out of his wits. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Both, perhaps, mon ami. The burns suggest contact with a substance not meant for careless hands. But is Tom Weaver a victim of circumstance, or a player in this game of death? The delivery, it intrigues me. We must learn more of this supplier in Cranford, and the burns, they must be compared to the powder from the lantern. They walked back toward the village center, where the chemist awaited with answers about the mysterious residue. Poirot's mind churned, weaving connections between Tom's trembling hands, the crimson lantern's destruction, and the locked workshop. The apprentice's tale was one of loyalty, but beneath it lay a current of fear. Had Tom stumbled upon something dangerous in Marwood's workshop, or had he been drawn into a plot beyond his understanding? The truth, Poirot knew, was close, hidden in the shadows of Limstock's quiet lanes, waiting for his little gray cells to bring it to light. Chapter 7. The Poison's Trace. The village of Limstock lay cloaked in the stillness of early evening, its cobbled streets glistening faintly under a drizzle that had begun to fall. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the damp, led the way to the chemist's shop, his small frame shielded by a meticulously chosen umbrella. Captain Hastings, less prepared, hunched his shoulders against the rain, his face a mixture of determination and discomfort. "Beastly weather, Poirot," he grumbled. "But I suppose you're onto something with that powder from the lantern. It's got to be the key, hasn't it?" Poirot's green-gray eyes gleamed beneath the brim of his hat. "Mon cher Hastings, the powder is but a thread in the tapestry of this crime. It is not enough to find the key. We must understand the lock it opens. Come, let us see what the chemist reveals." The chemist's shop, a narrow building wedged between a bakery and a tailor, glowed warmly from within, its window displaying bottles of tonics and jars of herbs. A bell tinkled as Poirot pushed open the door, revealing a cluttered interior lined with shelves of glass vials and neatly labeled drawers. Mr. Grayson, the chemist, was a wiry man with spectacles perched on a sharp nose, his apron stained with faint chemical marks. He looked up from a ledger, his expression shifting from curiosity to wariness as he recognized Poirot. "Mr. Poirot, is it?" Grayson said, adjusting his spectacles. "Heard you were in Limstock about poor Marwood. Terrible business. How can I help you?" Poirot produced the small envelope containing the powdery residue from the shattered lantern, placing it on the counter with the care of a man handling a rare artifact. "Monsieur Grayson, I require your expertise. This substance, found on the remains of Monsieur Marwood's crimson lantern, is most unusual. I suspect it is no mere dust. Can you identify it?" Grayson took the envelope, his fingers deft as he sprinkled a pinch of the powder onto a glass slide. He peered at it through a magnifying lens, then prepared a series of tests, adding drops of liquid from various bottles. The air grew sharp with the scent of chemicals, and Poirot watched with the patience of a predator, his eyes missing nothing. After several minutes, Grayson straightened, his face grave. "This is no ordinary substance, Mr. Poirot," he said, his voice low. "It's a rare poison, odorless, colorless, but deadly when inhaled, especially in a confined space. The powder form is unstable. If it's disturbed, say, by breaking glass, it can become airborne. A few breaths in a small room like Marwood's workshop." He trailed off, shaking his head. It would be quick, but not pleasant. Hastings, leaning forward, let out a low whistle. "Poison in the lantern? That's devilish clever. Someone knew Marwood would be working on it, close up, breathing it in." Poirot's mustache twitched, his mind racing. "Exactament, Hastings. The lantern was not merely a victim of destruction. It was the instrument of death. The poison, embedded in the glass or frame, was released when the lantern was shattered. But how was it placed there? And by whom?" He turned back to Grayson. "Tell me, monsieur, have you sold such a substance recently? Or perhaps ingredients that could create it?" Grayson hesitated, his fingers drumming on the counter. "It's not something I keep in stock. Too dangerous, and no call for it here. But—" He paused, glancing toward the door as if to ensure they were alone. "About a week ago, a stranger came in, asking for chemicals. Rare ones, the kind used in specialized cleaning solutions or industrial processes. I didn't have what he wanted, but I directed him to a supplier in Cranford. He didn't give a name, but he was well-spoken, wore a dark coat. Could have been anyone." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A stranger, you say? And this supplier in Cranford, they would have such a poison?" Grayson nodded. "They might. Cranford's got a larger shop, deals in all sorts of things for craftsmen and the like. Marwood himself got his glass from there, I hear." Poirot's fingers brushed his mustache, his thoughts aligning like pieces of a mosaic. The delivery of glass to Marwood's workshop, mentioned by Tom Weaver, now took on a sinister hue. Had the poison been concealed in that shipment, waiting for Marwood to handle it? Or had someone, a stranger, or someone closer, introduced it directly into the lantern? He thanked Grayson, tucking the envelope back into his pocket, and turned to leave. As they stepped into the rain, Hastings pulled his coat tighter. "A poison like that, Poirot, it's cold-blooded. Cobb's the sort who'd know about chemicals, isn't he? With his workshop, he must use all kinds of things. Or maybe Mrs. Henshaw. She had that odd vial in her drawing room." Poirot nodded, his umbrella shielding him from the drizzle. "Both are possibilities, Hastings, but we must not forget young Tom. His burns suggest contact with something dangerous, and his fear, it is not merely that of a grieving apprentice. The stranger Grayson speaks of, too, is a shadow we must pursue. Was it Cobb, disguised, Mrs. Henshaw's agent, or another player in this game?" They walked toward the inn where they were staying, the rain pattering softly around them. Poirot's mind churned, the poison's trace a vital clue that illuminated the method but not the motive. The locked workshop, the shattered lantern, the acrid scent, they all pointed to a crime of precision and cunning. Someone had known Marwood's habits, his devotion to his craft, and had turned his masterpiece into his doom. The chemist's revelation had narrowed the field, but the truth remained elusive, hidden in the quiet lanes of Limstock, waiting for Poirot's relentless logic to uncover it. Chapter 8. The Rival's Deception. The rain had ceased, leaving Limstock's streets slick and gleaming under the pale light of a rising moon. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat pristine despite the earlier drizzle, led Captain Hastings back to the cluttered workshop of Elias Cobb, the rival lantern maker whose envy of Silas Marwood was as palpable as the damp air. The village was silent, its residents tucked away, but the weight of their secrets hung heavy, and Poirot's green-gray eyes burned with purpose. Hastings, his face flushed with the chill and the thrill of the chase, kept pace, his voice low. "You're sure about Cobb, Poirot? That sketch in his workshop, it's damning. But is it enough? He's a slippery one, I'll give him that." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing at his lips. "Mon cher Hastings, the sketch is but a thread, and Elias Cobb is a man who weaves lies as easily as he crafts lanterns. Tonight we shall pull at that thread and see what unravels. The poison, the chimney, the stolen design, they all point to him, but we must have certainty." Cobb's workshop loomed ahead, its cracked window dark, the bell above the door silent as they entered unannounced. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of metal and neglect. Cobb stood at his workbench, startled by their arrival, his wiry frame tensing as he set down a half-finished lantern. "Mr. Poirot," he said, his voice rough with unease. "Back again? I've told you all I know. What's this about now?" Poirot stepped forward, his small figure commanding the cluttered space. He produced the sketch from his pocket, the one Hastings had spotted earlier, its filigree pattern a near-exact replica of Marwood's crimson lantern. "Monsieur Cobb," he began, his tone soft but unyielding. "This sketch, it is a remarkable likeness to Monsieur Marwood's work. You claimed it was drawn from memory, from a glimpse at the market. But I, Hercule Poirot, do not believe in such coincidences. Tell me, how did you come by this design?" Cobb's eyes darted to the sketch, then away, his hands clenching into fists. I told you, I saw it at the market. Marwood was always showing off. I've got a good eye, that's all. Poirot's smile was sharp, like a blade catching the light. A good eye, oui, but not so good as to recall every curve and flourish of a design seen in passing. Non, Monsieur Cobb, this sketch suggests intimacy with Marwood's work, intimacy that could only come from entering his workshop, perhaps by a route less conventional than the door. The chimney, for instance? Cobb's face paled, his scowl faltering. The chimney? You're mad. That thing's barely wide enough for a rat. I didn't go near Marwood's place, I swear it. Hastings, unable to contain himself, stepped forward. Oh, come off it, Cobb. You were jealous as sin. Marwood's lanterns were taking all your business. You sneaked in, didn't you, to steal his designs, maybe more? Cobb's eyes flashed with anger, but his voice trembled. All right, blast it. I did sneak in, once, weeks ago. Use the chimney like you said. Marwood was out, and I wanted to see his designs, figure out what made his lanterns so special. I took a few sketches, that's all. But I didn't kill him. I wasn't there last night. Poirot's gaze never wavered, his voice calm but piercing. A confession, Monsieur Cobb, is a start, but not the end. You admit to theft, to creeping through a chimney like a thief in the night. And yet, you expect me to believe this was your only sin. The crimson lantern, laced with poison, was shattered in Marwood's workshop. You knew his habits, his solitude. Did you not return, perhaps, to ensure his silence? Cobb's hands shook, his voice rising. No, I swear I didn't touch him. I took the designs, yes, but that was months ago. I was home last night. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. Your wife, she may vouch for you, but the truth, it is not so easily swayed. Tell me, did you see anything unusual during your visit to Marwood's workshop? A visitor, perhaps, or something out of place? Cobb hesitated, his eyes flickering with something like fear. I saw Mrs. Henshaw once, about a week ago. Not in the workshop, but outside, late at night. She was standing in the lane, just watching the place. Thought it was odd, her being there so late, but I didn't stick around to ask why. Poirot's eyes gleamed, filing away the detail. Madame Henshaw, watching the workshop. Most intriguing. And you told no one of this, Monsieur Cobb? Not even when a man was found dead? Cobb shrugged, his defiance crumbling. Didn't think it mattered. She's a fancy lady, not the sort to get her hands dirty. I kept my mouth shut. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Cobb's admission of theft was a crack in the facade, but was it the whole truth? The mention of Mrs. Henshaw added a new layer to the puzzle, suggesting she was more than a disgruntled customer. Had she been planning something, observing Marwood's habits as Cobb had? Or was Cobb deflecting, weaving a story to shift suspicion? We shall verify your alibi, Monsieur Cobb, Poirot said, turning toward the door. And I advise you to remain in Limstock. The truth, it has a way of finding those who run from it. Outside, the moon cast a silver glow over the village, the air sharp with the promise of frost. Hastings, his breath visible, turned to Poirot. He's admitted to sneaking in, Poirot. That's something. But do you believe him about not being there last night? And Mrs. Henshaw lurking about? What's she up to? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Cobb is a man driven by envy, Hastings, and envy is a dangerous master. He has given us a piece of the truth, but not all. The chimney, it confirms a means of entry. But the poison, that requires more than a thief's cunning. As for Madame Henshaw, her presence near the workshop is a thread we must follow. Was she plotting or merely curious? We shall see. They walked toward the inn, the village silent around them. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the fragments. Cobb's theft, the poisoned lantern, Mrs. Henshaw's nocturnal vigil. The rival's deception was clear, but the murder's heart remained hidden, a shadow in Limstock's quiet lanes, waiting for Poirot's relentless logic to bring it into the light. Chapter 9. The Widow's Lie. The morning mist clung to Limstock's rolling hills, softening the outlines of its stone cottages, as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings approached Mrs. Clara Henshaw's manor once more. The air was sharp with the scent of damp earth, and the distant chime of the village church marked the hour. Poirot, his overcoat impeccable despite the early hour, moved with a purposeful stride, his green-gray eyes alight with the quiet intensity of a man closing in on truth. Hastings, trailing behind, adjusted his scarf, his face a mixture of anticipation and unease. "Mrs. Henshaw's not going to like this, Poirot," he said, his voice low. "She was prickly enough last time. That bit about her lurking near Marwood's workshop. Do you think Cobb's telling the truth, or is he just pointing fingers?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile curving his lips. "Mon cher Hastings, Monsieur Cobb's words are like a lantern's light, revealing yet casting shadows. Whether Madame Henshaw was indeed near the workshop, we shall discover. Her composure, it is a fortress, but even fortresses have their weaknesses. Today, we shall test hers." The manor's heavy oak door was opened by Ellen, the maid, her expression guarded as she ushered them into the same opulent drawing-room where they had met Mrs. Henshaw before. The chandeliers gleamed, their crystal facets catching the pale morning light, and the glass-fronted cabinet stood unchanged, the mysterious vial of colorless liquid still among its delicate contents. Mrs. Henshaw awaited them, seated in her velvet chair, her black dress as severe as ever. Her pale blue eyes met Poirot's with a cool defiance, though a faint tightening of her gloved hands betrayed her unease. "Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, her voice crisp as frost on glass. "I had not expected a second visit so soon. Have you made progress in your inquiries, or do you merely wish to trouble me further?" Poirot bowed slightly, his manner impeccable. "Madame Henshaw, I trouble only where the truth demands it. The death of Monsieur Silas Marwood is a puzzle most intricate, and you, as one close to his work, hold pieces of that puzzle. I come to ask about a certain evening, a week ago, when you were seen near Marwood's workshop, late at night, standing in the lane. Can you explain this, s'il vous plaît?" Mrs. Henshaw's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise breaking her composure before she masked it with a dismissive wave. "Seen? By whom? That is absurd. I have no reason to skulk about workshops in the dead of night. Whoever claims this is mistaken, or lying." Poirot's smile was gentle but unrelenting. "The source, madame, is reliable, though I shall not name them yet. The lane by Marwood's workshop is not a place one visits by chance, especially at such an hour. Were you, perhaps, checking on the progress of your crimson lantern? Or did you have another purpose?" Her lips pursed, and for a moment silence hung heavy in the room. "I was not there," she said finally, her tone sharp. "I told you, after my disagreement with Silas 3 days before his death, I returned home and stayed here. My maid can confirm it." Poirot's gaze drifted to the cabinet, lingering on the vial. "Oui, your maid, Ellen, is most loyal. But let us speak of this vial, madame. You called it a cleaning solution, yet it sits among your treasures, not in a cupboard with household supplies. I have learned from the chemist that a rare poison, odorless and deadly, was used in Marwood's murder. A poison that could be contained in such a vial? Perhaps?" Mrs. Henshaw's face paled, her gloved hands clenching tightly. "You overstep, Mr. Poirot. That vial is nothing more than I said, a solution for my glassware. To suggest it contains poison is outrageous. I am no murderess." Hastings, standing near the fireplace, could not resist. "It's a bit odd, don't you think? Keeping a cleaning solution with your fine crystal? And now this talk of you near the workshop sounds like you had more on your mind than a late lantern." Her eyes flashed with indignation. "Captain Hastings, your insinuations are as tiresome as they are baseless. I had no cause to harm Silas Marwood. Yes, I was angry about the delay, but it was a matter of pride, not violence. I demand you retract such accusations." Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "No accusations, madame, only questions. But let us explore this pride. Your gala is a cornerstone of your reputation in Limstock. Oui? A delayed lantern, a tarnished centerpiece. It would sting, would it not? Enough to seek a remedy, perhaps, beyond mere words?" Mrs. Henshaw's composure cracked, her voice rising slightly. "You think me so petty as to kill over a social slight? I am a woman of means, Mr. Poirot, not a desperate criminal. I had no need to resort to such measures." Poirot nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Perhaps, but I have learned something else. Madame, a week ago, a purchase was made at a chemist's shop in Cranford, chemicals that could create the very poison found in Marwood's workshop. The buyer was not identified, but Cranford is not so far, and you, with your resources, could easily send an agent. Or perhaps you went yourself." Her face froze, the faintest tremor passing through her hands. "I have not been to Cranford in months," she said, her voice low and controlled. "You have no proof of this, only speculation. I will not be hounded by baseless theories." Poirot's smile was serene, almost pitying. "Proof, madame, is like a lantern's light. It reveals what is hidden in time. I thank you for your time. We shall speak again." As they left the manor, Hastings exhaled sharply, his breath misting in the cool air. "She's lying, Poirot. I'd stake my life on it. That vial, her being near the workshop, she's in this up to her neck. But how do we prove it?" Poirot's eyes gleamed as he adjusted his hat. "Patience, Hastings. The lie is a crack in her armor, and the truth will seep through. The vial must be tested, discreetly, and we must confirm Cobb's claim about her presence near the workshop. Madame Henshaw's pride is her shield, but also her weakness. If she is guilty, she has overplayed her hand." They walked toward the village, the mist swirling around them. Poirot's mind churned, the widow's lie a vital piece of the puzzle. The poison, the shattered lantern, Cobb's theft, and now Mrs. Henshaw's nocturnal vigil. They were threads in a tapestry of deceit, but the pattern was emerging, and Poirot, with his relentless logic, was determined to weave it into clarity, exposing the killer lurking in Limstock's shadows. Chapter 10. The Apprentice's Confession. The morning sun pierced the lingering mist over Limstock, casting a pale glow across the village's cobbled streets as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings approached the Weaver cottage once more. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and damp leaves, a reminder of autumn's steady advance. Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a charcoal overcoat, moved with the quiet determination of a man nearing the heart of a mystery. Hastings, his face etched with the strain of their relentless inquiries, adjusted his hat and muttered, "Young Tom's a nervous sort, Poirot. Those burns on his hands, they're not from lamp oil, are they? The lad's hiding something, mark my words." Poirot's green-gray eyes twinkled, though his expression remained grave. "Mon cher Hastings, you see the ripples on the surface, but the truth lies in the depths. Monsieur Weaver's fear is a beacon, guiding us to a truth he may not fully understand himself. Today we shall press him, gently but firmly, and see what he reveals." The cottage door opened before they could knock, revealing Mrs. Weaver, her face drawn with worry. Her apron was crumpled, her hands twisting nervously as she ushered them inside. "Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, her voice trembling. "Tom's not himself. He's been pacing all night, muttering about Mr. Marwood. Please, don't be too hard on him. He's just a boy." Poirot bowed slightly, his manner reassuring. "Madame Weaver, I seek only the truth, for the sake of justice and your son's peace. May we speak with him?" She nodded, leading them to the small kitchen where Tom sat, his shoulders hunched over the scrubbed wooden table. The oil lamp flickered, casting shadows across his pale face, where exhaustion had carved deep lines. His hands, still marked by those faint, reddish burns, gripped a tin mug, and his eyes darted to Poirot with a mixture of dread and resignation. "I knew you'd come back," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I told you everything, Mr. Poirot. I didn't hurt Master Marwood." Poirot settled into a chair across from him, his movements deliberate, his gaze piercing yet not unkind. "Monsieur Weaver, I do not come to accuse, but to understand. Your hands, they tell a story you have not yet shared. Those burns, they are not from lamp oil, as you claimed. They suggest contact with a substance most dangerous, perhaps the same poison that killed your master. Tell me, what did you touch in the workshop?" Tom's eyes widened, his mug clattering softly against the table as his hands shook. I don't know what you mean, sir. It was just oil, I swear. I was clumsy, spilled it while cleaning." Hastings, leaning against the door frame, crossed his arms. "Come now, lad, that won't do. You heard what the chemist said. A poison, rare and deadly, was on that lantern. Those burns look like you handled something you shouldn't have. Out with it." Mrs. Weaver gasped, stepping forward, but Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but insistent. "Madame, please, Monsieur Weaver, the truth is your shield, not your enemy. A few days before Monsieur Marwood's death, did he ask you to handle anything unusual? A powder, perhaps, or a delivery you were not to touch?" Tom's gaze dropped to his hands, his fingers tracing the burns as if they could speak for him. The silence stretched, heavy with the weight of his fear, until he finally spoke, his voice cracking. "All right, sir. There was something. About a week ago, Master Marwood got a crate of glass from Cranford for the Crimson Lantern. He was particular about it, checked every piece himself. But there was a small packet in the crate, wrapped in brown paper. He told me to get rid of it, said it was just packing material, nothing important. I opened it, just to see. It was a fine powder, white, like chalk. I got some on my hands, and it stung something fierce. I washed it off quick, but the marks stayed. I didn't think nothing of it till now." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his mind racing. "This packet, you disposed of it as he asked?" Where? Tom nodded, his voice steadier now. Burned it in the workshop hearth, like he said, the paper and all. Didn't tell him I'd looked inside. He'd have been furious. Poirot leaned forward, his fingers steepled. And this powder, you did not see it again? Not on the lantern or in the workshop? Tom shook his head vigorously. No, sir. I swear I never saw it after that. I locked up the night he died, like always, and went home. I was at the pub with some mates till late. Ask them. They'll tell you. I didn't know he was dead till I found him next morning. Mrs. Weaver interjected, her voice pleading. He's telling the truth, Mr. Poirot. He was home by 11, and he's not left the village since. He's no killer. Poirot's smile was gentle, but his eyes were unrelenting. I believe you, madame, that your son is no killer, but he has touched the edge of a dangerous truth. This powder, Monsieur Weaver, was likely the poison that killed your master. Someone placed it in that delivery, knowing he would handle it, but the lantern was shattered. Why? To release the poison, perhaps, in a cloud of death. Hastings' eyes widened. Good Lord, Poirot, that's fiendish. Someone sent that poison in the crate, and Tom here nearly got himself killed handling it. But who? Cobb, with his sneaking about? Or Mrs. Henshaw, with her mysterious vial? Poirot stood, his small frame commanding the room. That, Hastings, is the question. The powder links the delivery to the crime, but the hand that sent it remains hidden. Monsieur Weaver, your candor has been most valuable. Remain in Limstock, and speak of this to no one. As they stepped outside, the morning air sharp against their faces, Hastings turned to Poirot. The boy's lucky he's not dead, handling that stuff, but his alibi sounds solid. Pub's full of witnesses, I'll wager. So where does that leave us? Cobb's admitted to sneaking in, and Mrs. Henshaw's been seen lurking. They're both neck-deep in this, aren't they? Poirot's mustache twitched, his mind weaving the threads together. The net tightens, Hastings. Tom's confession confirms the poison's path, through the Cranford delivery, into the workshop. But the shattering of the lantern, it is the stroke of genius. Someone knew Marwood's habits, his solitude, his devotion to his craft. Cobb's theft, Mrs. Henshaw's vigilance. They are pieces, but not yet the whole. We must trace this delivery to its source, and we must test that vial in Madame Henshaw's cabinet. They walked toward the village, the church bell tolling in the distance. Poirot's thoughts churned, the apprentice's confession a vital clue that illuminated the method but not the motive. The poison, the shattered lantern, the locked room, they formed a pattern of cunning and malice. Someone had orchestrated Marwood's death with precision, exploiting the very tools of his trade. The truth was close, shimmering like a lantern's light in Limstock's quiet lanes, and Poirot's little gray cells were poised to seize it. Chapter 11. The Solution Unfolds. The parlor of Silas Marwood's modest home was bathed in the soft glow of late morning light, filtering through lace curtains to cast delicate patterns on the worn oak floor. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the room, his small, immaculate figure commanding the attention of all present. His tailored suit gleamed, and his mustache, perfectly symmetrical, quivered with the quiet intensity of a man about to unveil a truth long shrouded in shadow. Around him, seated in a tense semicircle, were the three suspects. Elias Cobb, his wiry frame slouched but his dark eyes alert. Mrs. Clara Henshaw, her black dress pristine, but her gloved hands betraying a faint tremor. And Tom Weaver, pale and fidgeting, his boyish face etched with dread. Captain Hastings stood by the door, his honest face alight with anticipation, while Inspector Japp, near the fireplace, shifted impatiently, his notebook clutched tightly. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice soft yet resonant, cutting through the heavy silence. "We are gathered to resolve the mystery of Monsieur Silas Marwood's death, a death most cruel, in a workshop locked from within, with a crimson lantern shattered at his feet. It is a puzzle of great cunning, but the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot, they do not falter. Today I shall reveal the truth." He paced slowly, his polished shoes silent on the rug, his green-gray eyes sweeping over the suspects. "Let us begin with the scene. Marwood, a craftsman of genius, found dead, his face contorted in agony, no wound upon him. The door locked, the windows barred, the lantern, his masterpiece for Madame Henshaw's gala, destroyed, and a faint residue on the shards. A poison, rare and deadly, which, when inhaled, brings swift death. How was this done, in a room no one could enter? The answer, it lies in the method and the motive." He turned to Tom Weaver, whose hands twisted his cap nervously. "Monsieur Weaver, you were the apprentice, loyal and diligent. You locked the workshop at 6, leaving your master to his work. But your hands, they bore burns, chemical, not from lamp oil. You confess to handling a strange powder, found in a delivery of glass from Cranford, a week before the murder. You burned it, as Marwood instructed, believing it mere packing material. But it was no such thing. It was the poison that killed him." Tom's eyes widened, his voice a whisper. "I didn't know, sir. I swear I just did what he told me." Poirot raised a hand, his expression gentle but firm. "I believe you, Monsieur Weaver. Your alibi, confirmed by the pub's patrons, places you elsewhere when Marwood died. You were a pawn, not the player. The poison was placed in that delivery, but not by you." He turned to Mrs. Henshaw, whose icy composure flickered, her gloved fingers tightening. "Madame Henshaw, your motive was pride. The crimson lantern, vital to your gala, was delayed, and you quarreled with Marwood. You were seen near his workshop at night, observing, perhaps planning. In your drawing room, a vial of colorless liquid, which you claimed was cleaning solution. But I have had it tested, madam, and it is harmless, as you said. Your presence near the workshop was curiosity, not conspiracy. Your anger was real, but it did not lead to murder." Mrs. Henshaw's shoulders relaxed slightly, though her eyes remained wary. "I told you, Mr. Poirot, I am no killer. My reputation matters, but not enough to take a life." Poirot nodded, his gaze shifting to Elias Cobb, whose scowl had deepened, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "Which brings us to you, Monsieur Cobb. You, the rival, consumed by envy. Marwood's success eclipsed your own, and you admitted to creeping through his chimney weeks ago to steal his designs. That sketch in your workshop, an exact replica of the Crimson Lantern, was no mere inspiration. It was theft, but theft, it was only the beginning." Cobb's face reddened, his voice rough. "I told you, I didn't kill him. I took the designs, yes, but I was home that night." Poirot's smile was cold, his eyes piercing. "Non, Monsieur Cobb, you were not. Let us reconstruct the crime. You knew Marwood's habits, his late nights, his solitude. You learned of the Cranford delivery, perhaps through a supplier you both used. You obtained the poison, a substance you, as a craftsman, could procure through discreet channels. You laced the glass in that delivery with the poison, knowing Marwood would handle it closely, crafting his lantern. But the poison alone was not enough. It needed to be released. So you returned that night, not through the chimney, but to the window. He paused, letting the words settle. The window, it was unlatched, a detail Marwood overlooked in his focus. You threw a stone, or perhaps a tool, shattering the lantern from outside. The impact released the poison in a deadly cloud, and Marwood, working close, inhaled it. He locked the door himself, as always, unaware of the danger. You fled, believing the locked room would shield you, a perfect alibi. Cobb's eyes darted, his voice rising. You've got no proof. It's all guesswork. Poirot's voice remained calm, relentless. Proof, Monsieur Cobb? The soot on the chimney from your earlier theft misled us at first, but the window's latch, slightly bent, tells its tale. And the supplier in Cranford, when questioned by Inspector Japp, recalled a man matching your description, inquiring about chemicals a week ago. Your envy, your theft, your knowledge of Marwood's craft, they betray you. Japp stepped forward, his face grim. That's enough, Cobb. We'll check your story, but it's looking bad for you. Cobb slumped, his defiance crumbling. I just wanted to ruin his work, not kill him. The poison, it was supposed to make him sick, stop him working. I didn't mean... His voice broke, and he buried his face in his hands. Poirot turned to the others, his expression somber. The human heart, it is a fragile thing, driven by envy, pride, fear. Monsieur Cobb's envy led him to murder, and now justice will follow. Hastings, wide-eyed, whispered, By Jove, Poirot, you've done it again. The window, how did you spot it? Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile returning. The little gray cells, Hastings. They see what others miss. The window, the poison, the motive, they align, and the truth shines clear. As Japp led Cobb away, the parlor fell silent, the weight of the revelation settling over the room. Mrs. Henshaw rose, her composure restored, and Tom Weaver exhaled, relief flooding his face. The crimson lantern's mystery was solved, but its light had gone out, leaving only the shadow of a man's greed. Chapter 12. Justice Served. The soft glow of afternoon light filtered through the windows of the Limstock Inn, casting a warm haze over the worn wooden tables where Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings sat, a pot of tea steaming between them. The village outside bustled quietly, its rhythm restored now that the shadow of murder had lifted. Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a neatly pressed suit, sipped his tea with delicate precision, his green-gray eyes reflecting a quiet satisfaction. Hastings, his honest face relaxed for the first time in days, leaned back in his chair, stirring his tea absently. "Well, Poirot," he said, a note of awe in his voice, "you've done it again. Cobb's confession tied it all up neatly, envy, theft, murder. But I'll admit, that business with the window threw me. How did you know?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile curving his lips. "Mon cher Hastings, the truth is like a lantern. It casts light only when properly aligned. The window, it was the final piece. Monsieur Cobb's tale of theft through the chimney was clever, but it was a distraction. The real crime required no such acrobatics. A simple stone thrown through an unlatched window shattered the poisoned lantern, and the locked door, Marwood's own habit, completed the illusion of an impossible crime. Hastings shook his head, marveling. Fiendish, really. To think he planned it all, the poison in the glass delivery, knowing Marwood would handle it, then smashing the lantern to release it. And poor Tom, nearly poisoned himself with that packet. Poirot nodded, setting down his cup. Oui, The young weaver was fortunate. His burns, they were a clue to the poison's presence, but his innocence was clear. His fear was that of a boy caught in a web not of his making. Madame Henshaw, too, was a victim of circumstance. Her pride and her nocturnal vigil near the workshop were mere threads in Cobb's tapestry of deceit. Outside, Inspector Japp approached, his hat slightly askew, but his expression one of grim triumph. He joined them at the table, pulling out a chair with a weary sigh. "Cobb's locked up, Poirot. Spilled the rest of it on the way to the station. Said he got the poison from a contact in Cranford, meant to sicken Marwood, ruin his reputation, but it went too far. Didn't expect him to die so quick. Fool thought he'd covered his tracks with that locked room nonsense." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The human heart, Inspector. It is the true locked room. Monsieur Cobb's envy was a key that turned too far, unlocking murder instead of mere sabotage. He knew Marwood's habits, his devotion to his craft, and used them against him. The crimson lantern, meant to be a symbol of artistry, became a weapon of betrayal." Japp grunted, scribbling a note. "Well, the magistrate'll have a clear case, thanks to you. The supplier in Cranford's being questioned, and we've got the bent window latch as evidence. Clean work, Poirot." Hastings leaned forward, his tea forgotten. "What about Mrs. Henshaw? She was mighty cagey about that vial, and Cobb saw her near the workshop. Could she have been involved, even a little?" Poirot shook his head, his voice soft but firm. "No, Hastings. Madame Henshaw's pride was her motive, but not for murder. Her vigil near the workshop was curiosity, perhaps suspicion of Marwood's delays. The vial, as we confirmed, was harmless, a red herring, nothing more. She is guilty only of a sharp tongue and a sharper temper." The inn's door creaked open, and Tom Weaver stepped inside, his cap in hand, his face less pale than before. He approached hesitantly, his eyes fixed on Poirot. "Mr. Poirot, sir," he said, his voice steadier now. "I wanted to thank you. Ma'am says I'd have been in trouble if you hadn't figured it out. I didn't know about the poison, I swear." Poirot's smile was kind, his eyes warm. "Monsieur Weaver, your honesty saved you. You are young, and the world is full of shadows, but you have emerged into the light. Continue your craft, and let Monsieur Marwood's memory guide your hands." Tom nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his face, and left with a shy bob of his head. Hastings watched him go, then turned to Poirot. "You've given the lad a chance to start fresh, Poirot. But what a case! Locked rooms, poisoned lanterns, envious rivals. It's like something out of a novel." Poirot chuckled, rising from his chair. "Life, Hastings, is often more dramatic than fiction. But the truth, it is simple when the little gray cells are applied. Come, we must prepare to leave Limstock. The train awaits, and London calls." As they stepped into the street, the village seemed brighter, its secrets laid bare. The crimson lantern, once a beacon of Marwood's genius, now stood as a testament to human frailty, its mystery solved by Poirot's relentless logic. Japp tipped his hat, heading to the station with his prisoner, while Poirot and Hastings walked toward the train, the case closed, but its echoes lingering in the quiet lanes of Limstock.